What did you find out about your friend's intimate life that actually shocked you? Years ago, my insecure virgin friend bragged to us about finally losing it to the hottest chick. We didn't believe him because he always made up stories about this, which were broken open every single time. He was obsessed with being a virgin at the age of 24, and his #1 goal was to lose it. Needless to say, he wasn't in a healthy state of mind, and we tried our best to boost his confidence and convince him that it didn't matter, but to little effect. He said this time he would prove it to us, so we'd know he wasn't lying. Well, one night we're at the pub and he brings her over, really gorgeous girl. We gently begin to pry into the details of their intimate life. She's very open about it and says she's been with my friend for 2 months and that he spent the night with her dozens of times. Afterwards, some of us thought it was a conspiracy where he paid the girl to lie. We never saw them kiss or anything that night. Eventually, we came to accept it and felt happy for our friend because it looks like he finally achieved what he so desperately wanted. We never saw the girl again, though. But this isn't abnormal because we don't usually bring our girlfriends around to hang out. A few months later, I saw the same girl on the train. I asked how her boyfriend was doing and she said he's doing good and left for the Air Force. My friend was still in town. So I asked her, well, what about my friend? Did you lie to us that night? She said, no, he's been over to their house many times to bang. Except the banging took place exclusively between her and her boyfriend, while my friend watched. She had a thing for humiliating guys, and I guess my friend thought it was better than nothing. Then it dawned on me that the wording she used was deliberately evasive, though technically not lying. I never told anyone, and I never confronted him. A few months later, they broke up, and my virgin friend, years later, still brings up stories about how he used to hit that. But I just play along and keep his secret. OP is a solid friend for not exposing his friend. Although, still kind of unhealthy mindset, should probably get that sorted, but still, homie moved to not say anything even though he knows the truth. I am finding it very funny though to think about his friend in that situation being told, like asked by the girl, it's like, hey, this is what we want to do, and he's just like, yeah, I guess it's better than nothing. Sure. We now have a Discord. Check out the server in the link in the description. Story 2. In high school, a classmate of mine was bragging one day about losing his virginity to a lady in our community who happened to be a mother to a girl in a grade above us. We all called BS and asked why he would say something like that, because not only is it unbelievable, it also just wasn't even a funny lie. Fast forward 6 months, and fellow classmate has to leave class on multiple occasions to go to court. Older lady was bragging to a coworker about sleeping with classmate, and now older lady is an offender. Story 3. Friend wouldn't let me use his computer 20-ish years ago. He said he had things on there that would change the way I thought about him. I stowed the thought aside. 12 years or so later, married with a young daughter, they threw his butt in prison for having an insanely large amount of inappropriate content on his computer. Like, really bad. He was part of some huge ring. Evidently, it was some pretty awful stuff. Story 4. My best friend in college got into a pretty frisky relationship with this dude for a while. They would do BDSM type stuff, none of which is particularly shocking to me, but I remember visiting her apartment and seeing a spoon out randomly in her room and asked why it was there. She said she loved the taste of his nut so much that he would finish into the spoon and feed it to her while she was tied up. I didn't think she would ever really shock me, but that one took the cake. Yep, me too, OP. That one did a number on me too. Story 5. I used to frequent Craigslist back before they banned anything even resembling a dating or hookup ad. I once placed an ad and got a response from a guy on my team at work, asking if I wanted to bang his wife, as in bluntly asking, hey buddy, wanna bang my wife? Your email address is stripped off when using their built-in email system, but the name on your email account comes through. The response was in this guy's name, which is unique, and he included a picture of his wife who I have met. The pic didn't show her face, but she has some visible tattoos, so there was zero doubt it was her. OP, you can't leave us hanging. Did you do it? I have to be a little suspicious if you don't say that you didn't. Story 6. After several years, I found out that one of my female friends wore a strap-on and banged her husband up the butt almost every time they did it. I don't remember how the topic even came up, but apparently that was how he liked it, and she was happy to oblige. He said that when he was 20, he tried to do it with another man, but didn't really find any enjoyment in it, because he likes playing with breasts while getting plowed. So he only likes it when it's coming from a woman. Interesting. I'm telling you guys, behind the scenes, you're not hearing any of it, but it's going to be a miracle if I make it through a single one of these without having to stop. Trying to get these words out of my mouth, sometimes I wish I was an AI reading these stories. That's not true, by the way. I hate AI voices, just saying. Story 7. My best friend used BJs as bribery to an insane degree. I mean, I'm not above a little BJ bribery myself, but she uses it on her husband like several times a day. Wants coffee but doesn't want to make it? BJ. Doesn't want to clean the dishes? BJ. It's her turn to walk the dogs? BJ. It's kind of hilarious. She's super lazy but prefers giving him head to doing most chores. And apparently it works for him too. She also doesn't want to bang as often as he does, so she finds this keeps him happy and she doesn't feel the need to put out as much. All of which I find hilarious. Well, if they're both happy, it sounds like they found something that works for both of them. Is it a little strange? Am I a little concerned? Perhaps. But if it works, it works. Keep on keeping on. Story 8. My friend was US Army / Special Forces / Green Beret and would go on regular shadow banging dates. He would find people online, mostly on Craigslist, this was in 2012-ish, and set up random anonymous liaisons with people he had never met, or even spoken with or seen. He would show up to an unlocked apartment or house, bang in the dark without ever seeing or speaking, and bail. One day we were playing Xbox and he got an email. Said, "Don't unpause it, I gotta go bang real quick." He left, did the deed, and brought a 6-pack back all within an hour, sat down and kept playing. This happened a few different times and I think about it often. Story 9. A friend of mine came out as asexual. I had never met anyone who was asexual, so I asked a lot of questions within his comfort level about what does it mean and what's it like to be in a relationship. He said he just doesn't have a drive, doesn't find anything frisky, doesn't want to be frisky, and is otherwise completely indifferent to it. He said even though he's banged, he's felt this way his whole life. He's been with his girlfriend for over 5 years, and she is not ace. She sleeps with other people and he's totally fine with it. He's not interested in progressing the relationship. She's cool with it for now. His biggest thing is that he was scared of how his family would react if they found out, and they would assume that he was just suppressing homosexuality. Turns out even people with no sexuality are still afraid of what others will think of them. Story 10. My girlfriend in high school was friends with this girl who was super quiet and pretty nerdy, totally innocent in every sense of the word. When she was like 12 or so, her mom got remarried to this dude who had a son around her age. Well, at around 16 or so, my high school girlfriend finally got stoned / drunk with me one night and told me that this girl didn't want to lose her virginity. So her and her stepbrother had been doing butt stuff regularly for months. All I remember was being like, what the hell? And then going home and taking care of myself. For full transparency, OP was a little more proud when he said that last part. I figured he shouldn't be, so I toned it down for him. You're welcome. Story 11. Oh boy, this is a fun one. So my friend decides to tell our whole group that his now ex-girlfriend asked him what his favorite game was. He said Rainbow Six Siege. She looked it up and asked him who his favorite characters were. He said Mute and Caveira. She asked him for $100 and he obliged. Sometime later, she invites him to her house. He goes there and all the lights are out. The house is empty. Suddenly, something jumps out of nowhere and tackles him to the ground. He looks up to see his girlfriend in full Caveira cosplay holding a butter knife to his neck, demanding to know where his friends are. She then motions his sight to a chair nearby that has a Mute costume and a pack of rubbers. OP, no amount of convincing can change my mind that you wrote this as your own fantasy, you frickin' weirdo. But you do you. I still don't believe that this was your friend, though, or that it happened. Story 12. One of my former best friends and his fiancée had been together for nearly 5 years, and due to be married in a few months when this happened. They were very open about their intimate life, saying it was awesome and that they had their fun nearly every night. A few months before the wedding, she confided in me that they had never actually banged before because he was scared. Apparently, he had her act like they were doing it daily to make it seem like everything was normal. First couple years they tried and didn't get anywhere with banging. After that, he just lost interest in her. Apparently, the mental abuse in the relationship was pretty high, too, which she completely hid from everyone to save his butt. This story is why the best friend is now a former best friend. Story 13. GF and I were hanging out with another couple and started to talk about our intimate lives. We joked about one Reddit post where the guy's wife wanted him to crap in her mouth. We stated that we agreed at the start of our relationship that our hard limit on anything kinky was involving bodily fluids that weren't nut or lubricant or whatever. At that point, the dude looked up at us with a shocked look. Not even pee? That was all he had to say. I'm sorry, I could not hold it together. The dude self-reported so hard, and I don't even think he knew. What an incredible line. If he meant that as a joke, he's a comedic genius, but I have a strong feeling it just kind of slipped out there. Story 14. That they didn't have an intimate life. We were all in our late 20s and they got married last year. Around 2 months after the wedding, I was joking about the lingerie set I bought her on her bachelorette trip and asked if she had worn it after the honeymoon. She looked at me straight and said no. I thought we were having a lighthearted conversation, friends for 9 years, like we always have had, and I was taken by surprise. She followed up with, I'm married now, so I closed shop. He can bang when I try for a baby, but once I have a kid, it's over. They just had their first child this month. It's going to be a long 50 years for her husband. Well, if the husband didn't know about this and wasn't 100% on board beforehand, this marriage isn't gonna last at all. And if that is the case, I don't know what OP's friend was thinking. This is absolutely something you communicate with your partner, no? Story 15. One of my best friends, who I thought was ace since any talk of banging caused her to get grossed out, ended up becoming my twin brother's girlfriend. Turns out she had just not met any guys that she felt comfortable with, and since we've been friends for a couple of years, she decided he would be a good first. Then one night she drunkenly told me about how much they were banging. And that was kind of weird for all parties, since my brother was also there. But hey, I'm happy for them. Story 16. My best friend married his high school sweetheart. I knew they were both inexperienced when they got married. What I didn't know, and only found out when they eventually got divorced, was that they only banged about 20 times during their 10-year marriage. The wife evidently got zero enjoyment from it, and only did it when she wanted to get pregnant. They had 3 kids, and all happened relatively easily/quickly. He was not allowed by her to pleasure himself or look at adult content, although he did it behind her back. This also just had nothing to do with religion or anything like that, just how she personally viewed intimate stuff. My friend, who really didn't know any better, just assumed that's what marriage was supposed to be like. He's now remarried to an incredible woman who evidently loves to bang, and has been more than willing to make up for all the time my friend has lost. I've never seen him so happy. Story 17. My best bud of 20 plus years recently came out as gay. He had a bit of a weight problem, so was constantly single. Like a good friend, I hooked him up with girls a couple times and watched as their relationship went nowhere. I always felt guilty for having a great wife. Now, after 20 years, realizing all my efforts to get him laid were going toward the wrong frickin' gender. Also, not just gay, but like bespoke leather puppy mask gay. Rolled a 1 on that perception check. Story 18. I was housemates with a good friend of mine for several years. I found one of his shirts in my laundry one day, so I decided to fold it up and put it away for him. I opened a drawer that I assumed would contain shirts, and half of it was full of adult-sized baby diapers. Took me weeks to ask him about what I saw, but I just had to because I couldn't unsee it. He was forthcoming about his kink, but it was weird since he was a really straight-laced kind of guy. He got the last laugh though when my brother inadvertently bought me Noro for Christmas, and I just couldn't stop crapping myself. He left one on my bed while I was in the bathroom with a note that just said, "They're one size fits all." OP, your housemate took that like a champ. I still don't think you had to ask though. You knew exactly what that was about, right? But no, that's a hilarious joke. Good on your housemate for being so comfortable with it. Story 19. My ex refused to hold a knife up to my neck while we banged. Okay, I understand that there are fantasies, but the point of fantasies are that they are safe and you're in control. I tried telling her if you use a real knife, well, that's dangerous and insanely stupid. She insisted no, it had to be a real one. She had a lot of problems, and I don't speak to her much anymore. I also spoke to an acquaintance of mine who slept with her once and didn't speak with her thereafter. I'd asked him because I had to know, what was it like with her? Apparently, in her deepest death metal voice, she screamed to nut on her face. I then understood why he didn't talk to her after that. While I would have loved to yell nut on my face in a death metal scream, I have neighbors, and a sense of pride, admittedly, and maybe a bit of cowardice if I'm being honest. So, sorry. Story 20. My friend finally got his first girlfriend now at the age of 20. I'm super happy for him as it seems they have a lot in common, and seem to really enjoy each other's company. He was talking with myself and another friend while out to eat, and we joked around with him asking if he had smashed yet. He said no, but mentioned he did other things. I questioned him on that and he became kind of timid. We egged him on a little bit and he admitted that he did stuff with hands. However, him being him, he wasn't used to the sounds that came along with it, as well as his girlfriend's moans. He said when he started, he began to silently giggle to himself because of the wet noises, and eventually burst out laughing in his famous, to us, high-pitched chortle after she moaned loudly. She was supposedly upset when it happened, but now they're both able to laugh about it. Story 21. I had a friend that I worked with. We got pretty close and used to go out for drinks and chat. I knew she had a really rough childhood, but she didn't give the nitty-gritty details. I could tell it upset her. One night, she just sort of blurts out that she unalived a man. I was like, what? Apparently, her uncle used to repeatedly assault her when she was 12 to 15-ish and he was living at their house. She told her mom and she didn't believe her, so it continued. When she was in college, she was home for a family event and saw him. He tried to get some mind-screwing going on and reminded her of it, and tried to act like he owned her. That night, she went to his place and put a bullet in his head. He was heavy into the drug game and was cooking for years. Police just wrote it off as a drug deal gone bad. She has never told her family, obviously it was her. I don't blame her. She tried telling them once, and they failed to protect her. I know murder is bad, but I say good frickin' riddance. Story 22. I have a friend I've known since I was a youngin'. This guy was probably the most successful with getting laid in our group of nerdy goofuses. Last winter he came out as bi, and that was pretty jarring to the friend group, because we had seen him as the most hetero of our group. 2 months later, he came out as a her, and that was a bigger surprise, as we were still getting accustomed to this newer, more open version of our friend. At the time, we were working at the same company, and spent a lot of time in the truck together. I took the opportunity to pick her brain, and she was cool with it. Basically, what I got out of it is that my friend prefers getting banged in the butt hard, rather than doing the banging. Then she said she would be okay with losing her dong, like if it just stopped working, because she wasn't into having one. I was shook. As a guy with a dong that enjoys the benefits of the dong, it was pretty hard for me to understand. In no time, we all had no hiccups referring to her by her new name, and she seems really happy, so I'm glad my friend is getting banged in the butt, I guess. Good for OP's friend group for being so supportive. That much info, though? That's really supportive. Story 23. Playing King's Cup at a cabin one night. My friend, super freaking cool dude, literally everybody loves him, is playing with us. I've known him for almost 10 years. Met him in college in our fraternity, and he is a badass. I knew he was an adventurous dude. Usually has someone he's hooking up with if he doesn't have a girlfriend, but this still shocked me. My turn is up in Never Have I Ever. It had gotten to the point where you start targeting people with your I've nevers, so I target the girls. I've never sucked a dong, I said. He puts a finger down. I looked at him absolutely shocked. I ask him, what the heck, really? He looks at me with the straightest face and says, I've lived, dude. Enough said. He owned it like a champion. So much frickin' respect for him. I probably would have lied in his shoes. Story 24. Many years ago, I had a work project. I was project manager, and we had subcontractors on site doing the work. This crew included a young married couple. He was their project manager. She ran the on-site lab. Found out about halfway through the project that they were swingers. I guess I wasn't so much shocked as surprised. They'd been married less than a year at the time. I always figured that swinging was something for longer married couples to keep things fresh, not something relatively newlyweds did. OP, what do you mean by you weren't so much shocked as surprised? Aren't they the same thing? Am I going nuts? I feel like they're the same thing. Story 25. I was only 19 and never had a real intimate relationship before. My coworker at work became really close friends with me and would talk about her intimate life on the regular. She was 17, 18, and her boyfriend would watch her get banged by her best friend a good amount of the time. They were all fine and turned on by it. Okay. I guess I sort of figured that these sort of kinks came along later in life and not when you're still in high school. Story 26. I found out one of my best and oldest friends was gay. We were very close from ages 12 to about 24 before we had a falling out, and didn't talk again until our early 30s. His ex ended up telling me that he was gay. I guess he was afraid to tell me himself. It was definitely weird, but we had other friends that were gay growing up. When we finally hung out again, neither one of us brought it up. And then I found out later from his ex again that he was really mad that I didn't bring it up. I thought I was just being polite, and honestly, it didn't change anything for me. More girls for me, I guess. Story 27. My good friend Frank of over 15 years has probably the worst story of all time. His father was a monster. His father did terrible things over the years, almost unrealistic to believe that he's walking around in society. But the worst crime he's ever committed was touching his children, not just his sisters, but including him. Since Frank was a victim of his father at a young age, thus began a frenzy of terrible events and crimes that occurred in his life. Frank is a big guy, but he is very smooth with words and has basically no morals, especially with the ladies, which means Frank has probably banged with more women than you, your friends, parents, and their friends combined. One of his most famous pickup lines in these dating apps is, "Wanna come over?" And I kid you not, works more than you would think. Unfortunately, since he is so reckless, he sleeps with basically anyone. But I did not know how far that would go. He told me one time he slept with one of his sisters. Since then, it's always bothered me how dark his family was. I just wished, frankly, I did not know as much. Yeah, trauma does crazy things to someone. I hope, I hope Frank finds some peace, maybe sees a therapist about this. Probably for the best if he does. But that's pretty shocking. Also, as terrible as the story is, part of me wishes that it is real, just so it means that OP didn't make this whole story just to end with the pun of saying, "I wished frankly." OP wouldn't do that, right? Right?